There we go.
Okay, we are live.
So yeah, yeah, we're live. So
Cool.
yeah, are you going to be driving while we talk, or?
No, no. I'm just sitting in my car because Starbucks is too noisy.
I gotcha.
Yes, half the time I work from Starbucks, especially on Fridays. These days I have to drop my kid,
Uh
so
huh.
I just drop him off at school and sit in the nearby Starbucks until his school is over, and then I pick it up and go.
Right, that makes
But
sense.
people
Yeah,
with no office have that luxury.
I hear you. Yeah, my kids, my wife takes them to school and stuff. So
Hmm.
especially on Fridays because she volunteers at the school in the morning. So.
Oh, so I have the opposite problem. My wife usually does that on most days,
Mm-hmm.
and on Fridays she volunteers for my older son's school. So
Uh
she's
huh.
at a different school, I'm at a different school.
Right. That makes sense. Cool. So what's going on in Satya's life these days?
Well, a lot of work going on in terms of so we had like there are three parts of my business. The first one is consulting,
Mm-hmm.
which I can control very well because it is how many clients come in. We know how many people we have, so those things are very much in control. And if there is less work, or if there is more work, then next time we simply delay the new client we take on.
Right.
But the second part of the business is the course business, and that one basically we took on more than we could handle. So basically, the course business, and for that, I'm responsible. I'm the main person responsible. It is not delegated to. I mean, it is. I have a team of about 5 or 6 people, but I
Right.
still need to do all the recording and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm deeply involved in the course creation. So that's taking all my time. And it's to a point that I want to hire somebody for managing parts of my business, somebody like a chief operating officer who can who can deal with, who can manage certain aspects of the business. And there are things that we could do and easily make good profits, but we are unable to get to it just because I'm very busy, so that's not good. um, so, and the third part of the business takes care of itself. I'm not involved at all, which is data collection and those kinds of things,
Right.
and some Photoshop work. Yeah, so the course business is consuming a lot of my time, and by January we'll be done with everything that requires my attention.
Mm-hmm.
And the new courses we do, they will be very much directed towards I mean, I'll have to think whether I will be the face of the new courses, or we could have some really good people um, who can become the face of the new courses,
Right.
the instructor and the primary instructor in the new courses.
That makes sense. So yeah. So it's all going according to plan, I guess, so far.
There have been delays, but otherwise it has been according to the plan. The good thing is that it was a three-course series, and we have released fully completed one course and
Mm-hmm.
released, so people have access to everything. The second course, we are dripping it 1 week at a time,
Right.
and most people had taken all three courses. So even though the third course will be delayed, it's very unlikely that people would come to that course because they have not completed the other two courses.
Right.
Yeah, and then I have a very good. So I've been doing a deal in the background. So a very large company has agreed to give free GPU hours for whoever takes the course. So that
Oh,
deal is
nice.
being yeah, it's already signed, but I don't know whether I'm able to speak right now about that deal. But anyways, so it's like $100 worth of free GPU time for
Mm-hmm.
the students. which is awesome. So that is keeping me busy, and of course,
Yeah.
taxes.
Taxes.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I defer all my taxes until the taxes need to be paid on April 15th, but
Uh-huh.
they don't need to be filed until October 15th if you just file a very simple form on April 15th, before
Yep.
April 15th. So I've gotten into the habit of doing that. So now finally so I overpay taxes so that there are no fines.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but there can be miscalculations in overpayment, and you may
Yeah.
underpay slightly, and then you have to pay a fine on that.
Yeah, I've been running into that some. My CPA, I mean, basically all they do for me is the taxes, so
Hmm.
they do the prepayments and then they
Right.
file my taxes every year. But for example, in 2018, I made a lot more than I thought I
Hmm.
would. And so
Right.
I wound up getting smacked in the head for not paying enough.
Right.
And the same for the year before, 2017.
Well,
And
you're required to pay only 110% of the previous year.
oh yeah, no, I
Yeah.
just got smacked in the head because I had a big bill at the end of it, right? Because I hadn't prepaid
Okay.
enough to
Right.
not have stuff that I owed. And yeah, they've been bugging me to get it paid
Okay.
because I didn't have that much money in the bank. So,
Right. Right.
but yeah, getting there.
So
Yeah,
in yeah, while running a business, it's always a good idea, at least, to have a good cash cushion.
yeah,
The amount of cash you think you need, is actually lower than what you actually need. Some things will
yeah,
happen, right?
yeah.
Which needs cash. So uh, so I have, I may actually also do a line of credit from the bank. So
Uh-huh.
the bank would give you a line of credit, and it's an option. It's not that you have to have the credit.
Right.
So you spend about $100 to have that option,
Uh-huh.
and then if you need it, you can use it, but
Right.
you may not need it. So
Yeah, that would
that
give me
is,
some flexibility. I don't know what
yeah.
it takes to get one though.
I don't know. My bank offered me the last time I went to my bank. The
Uh-huh.
business manager there, she offered me that, why don't you apply for this? You'll easily qualify, and
Right.
it's usually 10% of your revenue.
Okay.
So you get a line of credit, which can come in handy. I don't need any of it, but
Mm-hmm.
suppose, let's say, we decide to buy a house, etc. In that case, the cash, uh, there may be a couple of months where I do not have. I like to keep 2-3 months of
Right.
operating expense. It can easily 3 months of operating expense is at least something that you need to have in a bank where you're not touching.
Right.
And the other things, they go in automatic investment.
Mm-hmm.
They're still available. I can take it out within 2-3 months, not 2-3 months, 2-3 days, because these are, wealth front kind of investments where you can easily take out. It still takes 2-3 days,
Mm-hmm.
but that's about it.
Yeah,
Um,
I've been kind of figuring that out, especially since not this last week, but the week before,
mhm,
before I went on my trip to run the marathon.
right.
Um, I had two of my team members come to me and basically say, I have a full-time thing with somebody else,
Hmm.
but I believe in what you're doing at devchat.tv, because we talk about our mission and our values and things all the time, and they're like, I'm 150% behind this.
Right.
So I want to come work for you full time. I want to be able to put in, the effort there and, not worry so much about this other job.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting down and just trying to figure that out. And I've kind of flown by the seat of my pants as far as, having money in the bank.
Hmm.
So I get that cushion, but I get that cushion when I get a big sponsorship check.
Right.
And then, I eventually run that out and then I kind of make it up with the smaller sponsors.
Right.
But eventually I'm back down to, okay, I've got to make payroll this week, and I think I have most of the money that I need. And so,
Right.
yeah, I'm trying to figure out, because to bring them full time, I really feel like I need to have that money in the bank to where I'm saying, okay, look,
Yeah.
I can pay you what I need to pay you for you to go full time for at least a few months.
Right.
And then I can look at that number and just be like, okay, if that I ever go below that number, that means that I'm in all out sales mode. And
Right. Right.
so that's been kind of a realization for me, because the more I thought about it, the more I realized that, yeah, I need to just go into all out sales mode now,
Right.
sell either as much as can be sold,
Right.
which should be everything more or less. All of our inventory, ad inventory,
Yep.
or until I have, that pile of cash in the bank. And then when I get the next big sponsorship check, then that just sits on top of it, right?
Yeah.
And I can then work from there. And so then my baseline is, 2 or 3 months worth of money in the bank, instead of,
Right.
oh crap, I got to make payroll, and I'd kind of like to have some money for myself at some point. So
Right. Right. And if you think about it, if you get a line of credit from the bank, you don't have to use it. It is just available when you need it.
yeah,
That if it is 10% of your revenue, you can think of it as 1 month extra. It is 1 month.
basically.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is 10% of your last year because whatever taxes you have filed, that is
Right.
what they are going to look at and say, this is what we are going to give, which
Right.
usually, I mean, if it is a growing business, that's a big difference between this year and last year.
Yeah, but it would give me some breathing room on some of that.
It will. And for example, I don't need that cash at all, but it is just $100 for the entire year. Like having the option, just $100, why not, right?
Yeah.
And it can make a difference between, suppose a big thing comes along where
Mhm.
you have to put up upfront cash, and you don't know what it will be, because it is
Right.
business. You don't know what kind of expenses you may, what kind of opportunities will come up. So
Mhm.
having that cash cushion really helps.
Yeah, for me, I would kind of view it, because, it's not something that I would necessarily want to plan on using.
Hmm.
But then if things really slow down, then, I can pay everybody now, and then I can put the money back in there when I,
Right.
when I get paid again.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that's where I am with my business.
Good deal.
How
Yeah,
about you?
for me, a lot of it, is, just that, I want to have that chunk of change in the bank.
Hmm.
And I told my wife the other day that, basically I was just going to go into crazy sales mode
Hmm.
until I got that done. The
Right.
only real problem that I have related to that is just the amount of time that it takes to go and do the prospecting and the sales and stuff.
Right.
Um, and the fact that I am still propping up a handful of shows
Is
that,
it not the same people you go again, like the same companies that you need to go to?
for sponsorships,
Yes.
I have been doing that. So, I've been reaching back out to old sponsors that, for whatever reason. Usually it's
Hmm.
actually personnel turnover.
Okay.
So they'll
Oh, okay.
have their marketing person moves on to another company,
Right.
and then I don't make it into the budget again. And then,
Hmm.
after a while I'll come back because they have another new person, and they're like, oh yeah, oh, and we used to sponsor you. Oh, okay. And, and so then they'll come back. So I
Right.
do the follow up there periodically.
Hmm.
Some of this is also for the new shows, and that's kind of stretched our budget a little bit, because I
Right.
have to pay for the production of the shows and I don't actually have sponsorship for them yet.
Hmm.
So I'm working on that angle as well.
So one thing that is uh, with these, when you go, do they sponsor one episode, or do they sponsor uh, a chunk, like for a month or something like that?
I don't let them sponsor just one,
Okay.
because they won't get an ROI, and then neither of
Of
us are going to
course.
be happy.
Right.
And I just
So
tell them that up front. You have to sponsor at least 4 episodes.
4 episodes. Okay.
Most of the time I'm pushing them to 6 because 6 seems to be the sweet spot where you really start to see the ROI. I don't
Right.
know why.
Yeah.
And then I've also been pushing lately for them and basically, telling them, look, the sponsorship is here's our message, here's our message, here's our message, here's our message. And then you need some other form of follow up, because a lot of people listen to podcasts in their car or mowing the lawn or whatever, right?
Yes.
So they hear the message and it'll stick in their head,
Mm-hmm.
but it won't prompt them to take action because they'll forget when they're, when they
Yeah.
walk back in their
They'll
house or walk into work, right?
yeah, and they'll
So,
remember again when they are in the car again.
yeah, exactly. So if you can get them, by email or social media or, some other prompt where it's like, oh, have you checked out Sentry is probably one of our bigger sponsors at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Sentry, have you checked out Sentry? Because you need the bug tracking stuff. And
Right.
you hit them while they're sitting at their desk and it's like, oh yeah, we've needed that for a while. And, it's a reminder to go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the game that I'm playing now is I'm trying to get them to, do email campaigns or social media campaigns alongside it or things like
Right.
that where, we can get people in to, take advantage of the offer.
Right. So what kind of ROI expectations do the clients have?
It depends. Some of them are looking for kind of general brand awareness.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I just talked to Progress, Kendo UI, and they
Mm-hmm.
sponsored us for a long time. And then, yeah, they had personnel turnover, right?
Yeah.
And they had budget changes. So what happened? They had a budget change, and then they went through a reorg, and then the guy I'd been working with for the last few years left.
Okay.
And so it was kind of all three, right? And so then
Yeah.
I got handed off to another person who's in charge of the new sort of awareness arm.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's looking at just raising the profile of the company as far as people knowing about it. And
Right.
so she's much more interested in impressions than in people coming back to the website and converting.
Right. Right.
I talked to somebody else over there though who's on the marketing team for one of their products, and they
Mm-hmm.
sponsored for 4 episodes and an email campaign. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
much more interested in how many people click through and download the thing, right?
Right. Okay.
So it kind of depends. I mean, even within the same company, depending on what their role is. A lot of other companies, yeah, they want people. It's the number of free trials that get signed up for, or um,
Got it.
the number of people who actually purchase and things like that. And so
Yeah.
you've kind of got to find that sweet spot. The other thing
Mm-hmm.
is though is that with a lot of that, the other thing that helps is if I use the product and I like it, and
Mm-hmm.
I tell people that in the ad, that seems to boost that'll double the conversions.
Right.
So I usually am
Interesting.
also pushing them, hey, look, let me use your product and you see what I like. And
Yeah.
yeah. So,
That helps. That helps.
and then the other one that I'm doing is um I'm gonna start doing live streams of myself
Mm-hmm.
just coding stuff. And
Oh.
so
Okay.
I have one project that I'm working on in Electron that I'm just going to live stream. And then I
Mm-hmm.
have another live stream, and it's just going to be me trying crap out.
Okay.
And so, it's going to be, and I'm just going to make a list of the products I'm going to try out, or, not necessarily products, but even just tools and things that are out there that are free.
Right.
It'll be a mix of both, right? It's like, hey, you need something like this. So here's how this one works.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to work my way through those. And so I'm also giving companies an opportunity to essentially pay to get to the front of the line, right?
Right. Right.
Otherwise, they're going to be a few months out, the best case scenario, right? Because I have a list of things that I want to
Yeah.
cover. But
Yeah.
I don't mind covering their stuff if they want to pay for it, and then I can be like, hey, look, this is great. So,
Yeah.
because I think it adds value to people, because then it's like, I've been thinking about setting up continuous integration, right? And so then they,
Mm-hmm.
they come check out the video. Oh, okay. I see why this is useful. I see where this can, hook into what we're doing. And yeah.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of the deal there. I've been talking to another guy. He's one of the hosts on the Freelancer show. about
Mm-hmm.
doing basically a digital marketing to tech people show. And so we talk about, doing digital marketing to programmers and people like that.
Interesting.
Because it's a slightly different market, and and so we could talk about some of the niche things and the concerns there and stuff like that. Because he does content marketing. He has a team of people that write blog posts
Mm-hmm.
for company blogs, and basically helps raise their SEO, right, by having
Mm-hmm.
content. And I'm going to start offering the same service but for podcasts.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so yeah, we're kind of playing that game as well. And
So the production level will need to go up very dramatically, right? I mean, if you're producing podcasts for other companies, then that's a lot of work.
not necessarily. I mean, I'd probably just produce them to the level that we produce them for devchat.tv.
Okay.
And I would just be like, hey, look, this is what you're going to get. You can go check out our shows.
Yeah.
Um,
But are you
and
going to be the face of those podcasts, or
not
somebody else is going
necessarily.
to?
It depends
Okay.
on the company. Like I've been talking to one company and we're still hashing out. We've been sending contracts back and forth for the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But they want me to be the host on that show, right?
Okay. Well, as
They
long as
actually
they,
told me I could find a host for the show, but I couldn't. And
yeah,
it's interesting enough to me to do it. So,
right, for the right
eventually
price.
after a while, if it's a well-established show, it's easier to find a host for it anyway.
Yeah.
The other thing is then I can also tell whoever I find as a host for it, these are the expectations I have, right? And they'll
Mm-hmm.
probably actually get paid to host it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I am looking at. But I've talked to a few other companies and they want a show with their people on it. And so they'd record it and then they just send it to us and we do everything else.
So for a single episode, what should a company budget if they want to do a podcast?
It really depends there too. There are companies out there that will produce podcast episodes for you. And they'll write show notes in the whole 9 yards. The difference between what they're offering and what I would be offering is that you would essentially get the same process we have for the dev chat shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a lot of these companies, it's we'll put it on your RSS feed on your website, and we'll we'll charge you an extra fee for setup so that it goes on iTunes and Google and everything, right?
Right.
What I'm looking at is so we have a whole process, and our process is basically we book guests,
Mm-hmm.
we manage the recording. If they want to record on their own, fine. If not, then they can use whatever system we're going to be using.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get us the files. Or if they're using our system, then our system gets us the files.
Right.
And then after it's recorded, it gets edited, show notes. I'll find sponsors for it. And then it gets, we do all the social media promotion and audiograms and
Mm-hmm.
the whole 9 yards, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
we'll be doing everything that we have to in order to grow the show.
Yep.
We'll do all the SEO on the episode and everything else. And,
Right.
So it's kind of more of a full service deal on the episode so that we can help you grow your show and grow your presence with it.
So, but what is the cost like for them?
So a lot of the companies that are doing just the show notes and editing, I mean, I've seen that anywhere from $50 to about $200 an episode.
Okay.
I'd probably be looking more in the $400 to $500 an episode range for all the stuff
Okay.
that we're doing.
Right. Right.
But
they
we would
have to
make it
produce.
as easy as possible for them, so they don't have to do any of the work other than just providing us kind of guidelines as far as what they want the show to be.
But they have to produce the content, obviously. They will be
Right.
responsible. Yeah.
Yeah. So they would help us find content experts and people to be on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. And this $500 would not include the time. Suppose you are interviewing them, then that time is not included in the
Right. They'd
payment
have to
model.
pay me for that time to show up.
Yes. Right. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, and for even startups and small companies who do not know the whole process, it can be daunting. Especially podcast is
Yeah.
not very it's not very streamlined. So you need to
Yep.
know a bunch of different things to put it all together and release it.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too. I was talking to somebody the other day who was interested in starting a podcast, and we were chatting, and she's like, "So what do I have to do to get started?" I said, "Well, do you have a website?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Is it on WordPress?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, install this plugin. Do you
Yeah.
have a mic?" "Yep." "Okay. Get some artwork done and start recording." Because if
Nice.
you're just kind of doing it at your own level,
Yeah.
and you're just getting rolling, I mean,
Hmm.
that's more or less all you need. But if
Yes.
if you're looking to do it to grow your online presence, to gain SEO points and all of that stuff, then yeah,
Hmm.
it gets a little bit more involved. And
Right.
if you really want it professionally produced, you don't want to be doing your own editing and things like that, and
Right.
and have all that other stuff done for you, then yeah, then you'd probably just want to hire out to someone like me.
Right. What's the plugin?
It's PowerPress.
PowerPress.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's built by Blueberry.
Okay.
And yeah, it essentially just gives you a place to insert the URL for the audio media that you're sticking in.
Where
And
is
then,
the media stored?
so a lot of people use Libsyn, libsyn.com.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, make that work that way. What I'm actually looking at is, so we've been working on Podwrench for a while. We're actually moving shows over to it now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a system that I started building, and then I hired somebody to help me work on it.
Right.
And so we're hoping by the end of the year to have a workable solution that we're running all 19 of our shows on.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it would just be hosted wherever we decide to host them. So
Right.
that might be AWS, it might be on a CDN somewhere. I'm still figuring that bit out. Our
Right.
files are all hosted on Cashfly, which is a CDN,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a sponsorship deal with me. So I kind of have a sweetheart deal, and it's very
Right.
cost effective for me to host my own files there. But the contract doesn't extend to other podcasts on other networks,
Right.
and so
Right.
I'd probably wind up having to go back to them and negotiate, a storage deal for other people's shows.
Right.
The real issue there, though, is that um, I'm finding that for most podcast listeners, they don't really care how long it takes to download unless it takes all day, right?
Yeah.
So if it's being pulled off of like archive storage on
Mm-hmm.
AWS,
Yeah.
as long as it gets downloaded within a reasonable amount of time, or they can stream it without
Right.
glitches,
Right.
they'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
They won't care.
Right.
So I'm not sure how much I really want to spend on the storage aspect of things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really the network speed and the caching that I'm interested in, which are features of a CDN, but
Right.
it doesn't have to be a top tier thing. The other thing is
Okay.
that a lot of the storage options like Azure, AWS, I mean even Cashfly,
Mm-hmm.
um, you could put the more recent episodes up,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could archive them or icebox them,
Mm-hmm.
once they've been out for a little while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so because people, when they go and pull the backlog, a lot of
Yeah.
times they're not pulling it in to want to listen to it right away, and so
Yeah.
they'll go and they'll pull like 6 episodes out of the backlog and wait for them all to download. And
Mm-hmm.
so putting those on a slower connection won't hurt you that much as
Right.
far as
Right.
downloads go. So I'm kind of looking at playing that game too, right? So you stick a release date on an episode, and then the system just knows, okay, um, you know, 5 or 6 weeks after or even 2 weeks, just depending. Whenever it levels off on that curve on the download number of downloads,
Mhm.
that's when we would move it out and, put it in the archive system,
Right.
and that'll help us manage costs as well. But then it's, it goes out fast enough when you have it on the other system.
So for a podcast which has say 100 episodes or so, what is the cost of the storage? It shouldn't be much, right?
I don't have a good feel for that because I have a flat rate with CacheFly.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
we have a couple thousand episodes on devchat.tv. So I don't really know if we moved it all over to AWS. I think it's like 2 cents per gig or something.
Right.
And, each episode is 150 meg, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's say 10 episodes per gig.
So 2 cents per person who downloads.
Yeah. So
And
it'd be a
then
few $100 every month. No, not
$200.
even that. It'd be 2
No,
cents
it
per
doesn't.
gig times 200. So it'd be what, $8, $10 a month.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, it's definitely cost effective. It'd be the bandwidth that we'd be paying for.
Yeah.
Because we'd be getting lots of downloads.
Right.
But again, we could play with the tiers on AWS or Azure or wherever we put them,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of see which one's fast enough, and then just do that.
Right.
Or work out another flat rate deal with CacheFly or somebody, right? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we're on this tier until we get this many,
Right.
this much network traffic or whatever, and then we move over.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm still looking at some of that stuff and trying to negotiate it, but right now I just want it working. And so when we get it all together, as far as like the editors and everybody else, when they upload it, it'll just stick it on CacheFly.
Right.
And then when we start adding other people's shows, then we'll start looking at things and going, okay, what are we looking at for the rest of this?
Yeah.
But yeah, I looked at the possibility of like white labeling, because Blueberry does file hosting and so does Libsyn.
Mm-hmm.
And Blueberry, they just told me flat out that it wasn't an option. I talked to the folks at Buzzcast and they didn't have a good way to do it.
Uh-huh.
Because if I can just upload it to, their stuff and then, white label their numbers tracking, that would save me a lot of effort. But the other thing is that, and I've complained about it on here before, but I don't necessarily trust Blueberry's numbers. So that's another ding against using them on this system. So
right.
So yeah, we'll see where we end up with a lot of it, but yeah.
Cool.
I don't know.
So the business wise, what are you going to do? Any promotions in the next 2 weeks or so?
Promotions for?
I mean, not promotions. Reaching out to your sponsors.
Yeah, mostly just directly.
Okay.
So it'll be email. I've been using bombbomb.com to send video emails. I think Manny uses one called Bonjoro that does a lot of the same stuff.
Right.
So I'm going to be doing a lot of outreach that way. I'm also going to Jamstack Conf next week, and so I'm planning on talking to a bunch of people there.
Cool. Do you promote? Do you sell anything on these podcasts, or like courses or other things?
Not my own. I'm working on that. So I've been working on putting together Max Coders. And that's just going to be a membership site. It's going to have a forum. We're going to do monthly webinars, a monthly Q&A. And it's going to have courses in it. And then I'm just basically going to give people the option of, you can either sign up for a membership or you can buy the courses.
Okay.
Right. And then some of the courses are going to be more, they're going to look more like flagship courses.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to cost more. And
Yeah.
I'll just offer discounts to members
Right. Right.
is the idea. So, you know, if I come out with a big course that's not core to what Max Coders is about,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, I'll just put it up on, it'll be on maxcoders.io, but yeah, there'll just be a little tag in there that says, you know, this course is included in a Max Coders membership and this course isn't.
Right.
And then eventually I think where I'm going to wind up going is offering different membership levels. So the base level will include sort of the primary courses around communication and you know, taking ownership and leadership and things like that. And then the next tier up will probably involve some sort of either extra call every month. It'll
Mm-hmm.
probably include that, and then, you know, maybe like a group coaching or mastermind call with just a select size group, right? And so
Right.
somebody can come in and we can deep dive on their issues that month, and then the next month we can do it with the next person.
Right.
You know, and we'll kind of have a mastermind setup sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll put, you know, two people on the hot seat and okay, you
Right.
know, well, what are you trying to learn? What are you stuck on? Blah, 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 you know, and help them through that stuff. But, you know, and some of it might wind up feeling a bit more like life coaching than career coaching, which is totally fine. But yeah, you
Right.
know, it's like, you know, I can't get my wife on board with this career change I want to make or whatever, you know, whatever, you know, we'll talk about it. But yeah, that's a direction that I think I want to end up going. And then I'll probably wind up bringing people in that I trust to, you know, spearhead some of those groups. And then I might take on some one-on-one coaching clients for, you know, people that are just trying to, you know, completely top tier max out their stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
then the other, and this is a ton of work. I mean, so I don't really have a good idea of timeline and, you know, a direct plan for a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of at the last stages of getting my Get a Job book on Amazon.
Okay.
Because I wrote a book on how to find a job as a developer.
Uh-huh.
And once I have that out and released, then I would really like to write, you know, the next couple of books. You
Is
know,
it
and so
is it a digital book or are you planning to do a physical book as well?
I'm going to offer a physical book on Amazon,
Okay.
you know, so you can order it and they'll print it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of tempted also to just have them ship a case of the books here,
Nice.
right? And then I can take a
Yeah.
handful with me to conferences and just give them out.
Yeah.
You know, so I can give it out by way of a business card or something and just be like, okay, well, you know, here's my card and here's my book.
Right. So is the book informational or is it is does it have some element of humor and other things as well?
It's mostly instructional. It's,
Okay.
you know, so yeah, it's, I talk a lot about my experience finding jobs or clients as, you know,
Right.
an employed person or freelancer. But yeah,
That's something I would completely not know. I've never had a job. Or
yeah,
so it's interesting. I did interview a few times
yeah,
for jobs, but it's never had a real job in that sense.
yeah.
So there is this book called Managing Humans.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Have you read that?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So it's a book for developers on how to manage a team, a team
Mm-hmm.
of developers. And that is, I found it very interesting because it had a bit of humor in it, and it was a pleasure to read in that sense, right?
Right.
So there was a lot of practical tips, etc., but it was also funny, right?
Mm-hmm.
So something that I always think that if you can weave some amount of humor into your writing, that
Right.
helps a lot.
Yeah. I need to get better at that. Mostly I just kind of dumped all the information in there and then massaged it and organized it. I did
Yeah.
tell some stories, and some of the stories are kind of funny, but yeah,
Care to
definitely
share?
could put some more character into
Care
it,
to
I think.
share one of those stories?
Y'all put me on the spot.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm just trying to think through, I mean, I tell the story of, oh my gosh, sorry. Holy cow. I've been exhausted all week since the marathon. I think it's just part of the recovery thing.
Oh,
I'm
how
not
did
sore
that go?
anymore, but I am tired. I mean, I did tell people the story of I got laid off on my second or third wedding anniversary.
Oh,
Went
ouch.
home, applied to a
Yeah.
bunch of jobs.
Hmm.
I mean, it was somewhat anecdotal too, because I was also letting people know, hey, look, if you're out there creating content and being out there in the world, it'll reward you. Because I got a call that afternoon from a company that I don't remember if they found my resume or if I sent it to them,
Hmm.
but they called me in for an interview. So I went in for the interview that afternoon,
On your wedding
and
anniversary.
yes,
Okay.
and talked to them. And at that point, I had been doing screencasts for about 2 years on Ruby on Rails.
Hmm.
And so the guy interviews me. He figures out that I kind of know what I'm doing.
Hmm.
Um, and, so I tell him that I've been doing this video series. I wasn't really trying to brag or anything about it. It was just, hey, look, this is what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I walked out the door about an hour later.
Right.
And I wasn't even 5 minutes away from their office. I got a call from him. So when can you start? My
Nice.
answer was tomorrow.
Right. So you
So
got fired and hired on the same day.
on the same day. Yep.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Awesome.
So I went home and took my wife out to dinner and we just kind of toasted the new job.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So just stuff like that. And yeah, it's like look, go do the things that nobody else is willing to do, and that makes the difference.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, in my consulting business also, it is exactly like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was this was one of my first pieces of consulting gigs that I got, and there the person, he said that there were four other companies who were competing for that job, right? So I said, okay, give me the data, and I'll take a look at it and give you a proposal. So I took a look at the data and I said, this can be solved using this technique called deep learning, and
Uh-huh.
this is how much it is going to cost. And 2 days go by, and this guy says, "Oh, let's talk. Do you have some results?" The problem was that it was very early. Deep learning was just very new at that time, and I did not. I knew all the theoretical stuff. I had never done a practical project on it.
Right.
So I woke up at about 3 a.m. that morning,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually 4:30 a.m. and then I kept working on it. And you know, I was doing everything right according to the theory and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not working. So at 5 o'clock, I called up my friend and said that, look, this I think I'm doing everything right and it's not working. And he was an expert by that time on deep
Right.
learning. So he said, oh, let's meet for dinner and I'll see what you're doing. Okay. So I met him for dinner, and he looked at it and said, "Oh, everything's all right. This parameter, this learning rate, reduce it by a tenth, make it a tenth of what you have used." And I had
Mm-hmm.
made it half. I had made it a fifth, but I had not made it tenth. Right. So I had done all
Right.
the right things, but I missed this little thing, and boom, it starts working. And then I went back home and kept pushing the accuracy slightly more using all the techniques I had learned before. And finally, at 3 a.m. in the morning, everything was ready. And I
Mm-hmm.
told them, I sent him an email saying that, oh, sorry for the late reply, because 24 hours had passed. And I was just busy with other things. Can we meet today? I have some results for you, right? So the same day, uh, And I showed them, and they said, "Oh, these are great results," and things like that. But the only problem is that my estimate was 50% higher than what they had received from others.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that, okay, then why don't you take them on? He said that because nobody has given any results. And I said, there you go. You know what you're paying for.
Yep.
uh, so I did get the contract, and it paid for a few months of my. I mean, because I tell the story a few times. Um, the total amount of money I made from that was about 59,900 something. So
Right.
almost 60K from that one contract, and it was something that I just learned. I had learned recently. Was not even very good at it, and I
Uh-huh.
learned it on the job, right?
Yep.
So there are things, if you are ready to take the initiative, uh, people know the hunger. People can feel the hunger in you, the drive in you, and if you're committed to producing good quality results, then you know you will shine.
Yep.
It is, everything is too crowded these days, but there is always room at the top.
Oh yeah. Yep. I love it. I might have to steal that and put it in the book.
Sure.
Yep. But yeah. So yeah, you asked about the marathon. The marathon went really well. It was funny a little bit to me because I thought, okay, this is going to be a slog, I'm just going to, I'm going to get, 15, 16 miles in, and then I'm just going to, I'm going to crash.
Right.
And about mile 18, I really kind of started to hurt,
Hmm.
to I think I had started hurting beforehand, but I was kind of in it enough to um
To slog through.
yeah, well, and I wasn't thinking about, I'm starting to ache or whatever. Mile
Uh-huh.
18, I started to feel it. By mile 20, my quads were burning hard. I mean, it really hurt.
Uh-huh.
And the reason is because, I'd been running up and down the trails here where I live.
Hmm.
And, for the most part, I wouldn't say that. So the trail, if I head south, is pretty flat. If I
Right.
head north, it has some pretty good dips and rises to it.
Right.
But the marathon that I ran, it drops 2,500 feet in
Hmm.
elevation over the course of the marathon.
Hmm.
And so there's a ton of downhill running. And I just hadn't
Right.
done that much downhill. I'd done some on those dips out there, but, it was, it dips for a minute or two, and then, and then I have to run back up the other side. Right.
Mm.
And so, yeah, my quads were just on fire. And, I wound up, at mile 20 just in some real pain. But at the same time, I'm looking at it and going, well, I only have a 10K left to run.
Right.
Right. And in 3 miles, I'm going to be, basically in town, and then it levels off.
Hmm.
So, I just kept running, and yeah, that worked out pretty well. So yeah, I finished in 6 hours and 16 minutes,
Wow. That's
uh, sat for a little bit,
intense.
and then jumped in my truck and drove back to the condo we were staying at.
So was this your first marathon,
Yeah, it
or
was my
you have?
first one. Yep.
Wow. I've never run a marathon. I've never run any any substantial distance.
Yeah, I had run some 5Ks in the past,
Uh-huh.
but yeah. Um, now I've
How,
run a
how many
marathon.
months? How many months or months, I would say, of preparation did you need for this?
So, I decided I was going to run the marathon last year in like November,
Mm-hmm.
and I talked to John, and he basically said, "Well, I've been using these folks as trainers."
Mm-hmm.
And so I signed up for training from the company that he was using. Of course, he's not using them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And yeah, so I did what my coach told me to do while I was training, and that worked out really, really well. Especially
So
since I really had no idea what I was doing. And initially,
so
yeah,
the
I'd go like 3 miles and I'd be like, I'm done. Right? I'm dead.
I mean, that's my situation right now. I don't even know I'll be able to run 3 miles.
Right. But, that was back in like December and January. And,
Uh-huh.
toward the end, I was running, 16 miles and stuff in a go. I'd be out there for 3 or 4 hours, but yeah.
Wow. So every week you were doing 16 miles.
No, that was the longest run I did before the marathon. And so I was
Okay.
actually a little bit concerned going into the marathon that I wasn't going to be ready. But that turned out to not really be an issue. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
So usually the first timers they do a full marathon before actually doing the marathon, or it's more like 16, 17, and they pull.
so most of the marathon training programs that I've seen out there for people,
Hmm.
they have you running a 20 to 22 miler a
Okay.
couple weeks before the marathon. And then you taper off, right? So that you don't wear yourself out.
Hmm.
And so that you're well rested to just, go run the marathon.
Right. Right.
So that's more or less where a lot of people land.
Mm.
But yeah, I hadn't, and it was fine. Um, I think I might have been a little less sore if I'd run a little bit further, but I don't actually know that. So, and
Right.
I'm happy with the result because I finished. So,
Of course. Of course.
yeah. So now I'm looking at doing a marathon in the spring or early summer next year. I'm probably, the more I think about it, the more I'm probably going to do the Utah Valley Marathon, which is,
Hmm.
it starts up Provo Canyon, which is right up where I grew up, and it ends down at the Provo City Center Mall or
Hmm.
Provo Town Center Mall, which is anyway, it's like a half hour from here.
Okay.
And so it's a local marathon that I can go run, and my
Right.
goal there is to beat my time by at least an hour.
So so this time of the year is probably good, right? It's not too hot, not too cold, and
Oh, it gets freaking cold.
oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah. Um it might be above freezing now today.
Oh wow. Okay.
But when I got up this morning, when my wife left to take the kids to school and stuff, it was like 29 degrees outside.
Wow. Okay.
And um yeah, so it does get pretty cold here. And I've
Hmm.
been going out and walking, as part of my recovery, and to
Hmm.
finish 75 hard, which is a challenge that I've been doing. Incidentally, today is the last day. It's the 75th day.
What is 75 hot?
So it's a challenge. If you listen to the MFCEO project, it's episode 50 something, I think. He
Hmm.
talks about this challenge that he came up with called 75 hard. And what you do is you drink a gallon of water, you
Uh-huh.
work out twice for 45 minutes each, and one of those has to be outside.
Okay.
You have to read 10 pages out of a book.
This is in a week. Is this in a
No,
week?
every day.
What?
Every
Okay.
day.
Okay. I need
Yeah,
to
it's
calibrate.
not for sissies.
I need to recalibrate myself while talking to you guys. Okay.
And let's see. Yeah, so you do all of that. You have to stick to your diet, no cheating.
Hmm.
Um Did I list them all? Oh, you have to post to social media about what you did.
Okay. So you have to two work two workouts. Did you say two?
Yeah.
Of 45 minutes each?
45 minutes each, and one of them has to
Every
be
day,
outdoors.
every day 1.5 hours?
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, and if you mess it up, then you have to start over.
And you do this for how many days?
75 days. That's why it's 75 hard.
Oh God.
So I've been doing 75 hard for about 110 days
Wow, that's a big deal. I mean,
because I
congratulations,
messed
by the way.
up a couple times.
Yeah.
The first few times I messed up. Let's see. So yeah, the first few times I messed up within like a week or 10 days or something.
Mm-hmm.
And
what kind of a diet does he recommend?
you can do anything
Okay, you
as
just have
long
to
as you're
stick to it.
as long as you don't cheat. So
Okay.
so and he had one of his co-hosts on that was doing 75 hard. And he was like, well, I have to start over because I didn't hit my calorie budget, right? And he's like, no, did you cheat? And he's like, no, I just didn't do it 100% correctly. And he's like, no, you didn't cheat. So right, because he was under his calories.
Right.
You know, he didn't hit his macros 100% right. And so yeah, he was like, no, he's like, as long as you don't cheat.
Yeah, so it's
So
a mental thing.
yeah, it's all a mental thing. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so generally when I do my 2 45-minute workouts, I would just go for an
Mhm.
hour and a half. Right.
Right.
And I would just get it out of the way. So I'm
Yeah.
probably going to wind up walking somewhere for 45 minutes today or
Oh, so
tonight.
the workout, when you say workout, it's not really physical. I mean, a walk is also a workout.
You're supposed to exert yourself doing it.
Okay.
I'm on recovery for the marathon.
Yes.
And so, you know, I've just kind of gone out and walked about as fast as I can.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah, I'm recovering from the marathon. So walking this week has kind of been okay. Because
Right.
I figure if it hurts, then it counts. Right.
That's true. That's true.
You know, you should be a little bit out of breath was kind of what he was saying as far as, you know, so you can't
Yeah.
just go out and like wander around.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm still in a little bit of pain, but not a ton of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'll probably go walk today just because I'm still supposed to be recovering. And then, yeah.
Do you have a fixed ritual you follow that?
No, I
Like
need to
morning?
get into
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
For a while, what I was doing is I was getting up early and I would go for a run after we read scriptures together as a family and before I had to take the kids over to carpool.
Mm.
And so, you know, that was about an hour. So 45
Right.
minutes to an hour, I could squeeze that in. And then I'd go do the other 45 minutes at another time.
Right.
But once the runs got longer, that wasn't really an issue, a thing that I could do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So anyway, so that was one thing that we figured out. I probably could have just talked to my wife and had everybody get up and get started 10 minutes earlier, and that would have worked.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, so that's something that I've been kind of figuring out. But anyway, but yeah, so yeah, so
I
the
think we have
walking this time I've kind of been I've kind of fudged it a little bit just so that I can recover from the marathon.
we are sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's have some closing thoughts and then
Yeah.
we'll meet next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are. Oh yeah, it's 11:05.
You want to go first?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've really been thinking about with some of the stuff with people coming to me and saying, "Hey, I want to be part of Dev Chat full time,"
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, and it's not to say that I hadn't thought about this before, but I hadn't really been explicitly trying to, you know, get my brain around how to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Is, you know, what are my responsibilities to the people that work for me?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I've been much more focused on what they're doing for the company and for the mission and, all of those things.
Mhm.
And being a leader means that you have responsibility to the people that you lead.
Right.
And so my thought really just centers around that. Think about not just, your leadership role in the sense of getting people to get done what they need to get done, but
Mhm.
think of your leadership role in the sense of, how do I help them to be successful and help them to be, the best that they can be for them, not for
Right.
me, not for the company, but for them.
Right.
So in other words, how do I help them be better because I'm a good leader?
Right.
And there are a lot of ideas that come out of the book that I'm reading, The 360-Degree Leader.
Mhm.
But
Do you recommend that book?
oh yeah, it's been awesome.
Okay.
It's written for people who manage from the middle. So if you're at the
Okay.
top of the organization, I think John C. Maxwell, I think he has other books
Mhm.
that address that more directly. But a
Mhm.
lot of the stuff that he has in there has been really, really helpful to me, even though I am at the top of the organization here. So,
Cool.
um, yeah, and he talks about culture. He talks about leading up, so leading the leaders that lead you.
Mhm.
And I'm part of other organizations, right, where I'm not the person in charge,
Right.
and so it applies there too. And then all the way down to how do you lead across to people who are at your same level, and how do you lead down the people
Yep.
that work under you.
Right. Right.
And anyway, it's been really, really instructive. I probably am going to have to go back and read it again because there's
Mhm.
just so much in it. But
Right.
yeah, I've really been thinking about that lately. So if you lead people,
Mhm.
or if you're led by people, think about what opportunities you have to make them better
Right.
and to
Right.
enable them to reach whatever goals and make whatever progress is needed to be made.
Right. Cool. Yeah. So my thoughts are basically, in business, you have to be careful with. It doesn't matter how much you're making. What matters is how much you're keeping, and taxes are a very crucial part of how much you keep. A lot of people ignore that thing and don't get deep into how they are uh, how they are doing their taxes and putting all these things together. So it's important that people know what structure their company should have. And I'm trying to figure it out myself. Until 2018, the structure I have is optimal in the sense that I've talked to multiple CPAs and they have not figured out a way for me to, even save one extra dollar. It's pretty optimized.
Mm-hmm.
But for 2019, that may have changed. And so I need to figure out what is the right structure of the company
Right.
for me. So that is something people need to very carefully think about, um, because it's one thing to make money, but it also what really matters is when you're a business, unlike when you're earning a salary, you don't have an option. There are only very few options of how to save on taxes. You just have the retirement plan and so on. But when you're a business, you have a lot of options, including the retirement plan, which can be set up in such a way that it saves you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So, the self-employed 401ks and things like that.
Yep.
Uh, so people should think about that very carefully. It's not what you make, but it's what you keep.
Right. Yep.
So that
100%.
is it.
All
Yeah,
right.
that
Good
is it
deal.
from my side.
All
So
right.
we'll
Well,
get together next week.
yep.
Okay.
I will be in San Francisco, so I'll be joining from there.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
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 Is there a way to turn off the sharing? I guess we just